Hello and welcome to my drumming. This drum video is a review for this lovely thing next to me, which is a Roland VAD-306. Now, I've had this for about a month. Previously I had a Millennium MPS 850 and prior to that I had a Yamaha DT Express kit. So this is my third electric kit. I've had a number of acoustic kits as well, but this is really to talk about this kit, what I think about it and how it compares to other kits that I've had. So I'll play bits of the kit later on so you can hear sounds and get a general impression about what the sound of it is like. Overall I think it's incredible. You know, it's really, really good. The step up between the last two kits that I've had is noticeable. And what I'll do now is just run through the main pros of this kit. So to start with, I think one of the first pros is the great feeling that you have of the kit itself. So the mesh heads on the drums are like nothing I've played before, you know, so responsive, and they just feel good to play, feel like acoustic drums. And that sounds quite strange when the Millennium that I had before had mesh heads, but these just feel different to hit. And when you're interacting with them, you know, it's just more realistic. So if you're doing a fast snare drum roll, say, you know, it just feels much more like an acoustic drum head. Previously on the Yamaha kit it was solid rubber pads, so although the sticks would bounce on it well, it wasn't anything like an actual acoustic drum. The Millennium kit, whilst was much better, it's just not the same as this. It's just so much more responsive, so it feels great. So following on from the feel of the drums, I'm now going to talk about the sounds of the drums and the cymbals, or the pads rather, that they make. And there's such amount of variation that you can have within them. So you've got 4 dials at the top: volume, bass, treble and ambience. Now, I didn't think that they'd actually make that much sound difference when you were playing, but what you can do, so at the moment I'm just in preset kit number 1. So if you just have a listen to the snare drum playing, I've taken out all bass, treble and ambience. That's just changing the treble, okay? So you can hear much more of a difference between treble at full, treble taken away. This is with no bass added. With full bass added. And then the way that ambience I've learned about it is when the sounds of the kits were being first recorded and put in, or getting prepared to put into the modules, there was microphones around the room, and the ambience dial on the brain, as you turn it up, it adds the sound which the microphones around the kit would pick up as the kit sounds were being recorded. So I haven't noticed a huge amount of change to the individual drums with the ambience going on, but as you play around with different kits it does make a difference. So I'll just see if we can pick something up on the snare drum now with no ambience added and then going up to maximum. Yeah, not much of a difference, but when you've got the other dials played in, then it does make a bit of a difference. Another pro that I think is really good is the hardware that comes with this. Now, previous electronic kits that I've had have all come with a black plastic / slightly part metal rack, and you are limited to the setup of the drums with the racks, I think. On previous videos which I've done on this channel, you can see the 2 kits that I've played, and the height of the drums is quite low with the Millennium. Because this kit comes with cymbal stands, so you can, and then the brackets which the individual toms come off, you can change the height, have them wherever you like. And the cymbals all come with boom arm stands, so you know you can set it up however you like. It feels and looks much like an acoustic kit, so that's one of the main positives that I think comes with this as well. Which does bring me into one of the negatives, which I think they've slightly missed a trick on, because when you buy this kit it doesn't come with a hi-hat stand, it doesn't come with a snare stand, and it doesn't come with a bass drum pedal. Now I know when you buy an acoustic kit you have to buy your hardware separately, but this kit isn't cheap. You know, it's an expensive kit, so I think especially with the hi-hat, you know, you should get that hardware thrown in. I think yeah, I would prefer it if it comes with the same quality hardware, like the cymbal stands. I'd prefer it if they gave you a snare drum stand and a hi-hat stand and a bass drum pedal. You know, I think it's a bit cheap to not include it, if I'm completely honest. And the final positive that I wanted to talk about is the bass drum. I think it's great because with other kits that I've had, you get, I mean, when I got the Yamaha, I think the bass drum pad was about the size of my 2 fingers, so you could just have one individual bass drum beater on it. I then upgraded to a bigger pad. The Millennium bass drum was a pad of about that size. This actually comes, it looks about sort of half the size of an actual acoustic bass drum, but the head on it, the bass drum beater interacts with, just has a better, more solid feel, so you can actually end up playing faster bass drum patterns on it. So I just love that. It comes across really well. It actually feels like your skills are improving by using this bass drum. So yeah, it's great. And whilst I'm using my own double pedal with it, it still feels like my bass drum skills are getting faster and improving. So on to the things that I didn't quite like as much about this kit. I've mentioned the lack of all hardware being included, which I think is something that they've missed. And one thing that I'd have really loved on this kit is something comparing it to the Millennium. The Millennium on the Brain module had individual volume controls for each pad. So as you move through the preset kit settings, if your bass drum's a bit quiet, you can just add it up. If your snare drum's too loud, you can bring it down. You can't do this on this kit. And I think for the price that you're paying, it would be great just to have individual pad sound controls so you can change them. Because on some of the preset kits, the bass drum's very quiet, on some of it, it's much louder. Now, I haven't read the manual since getting this kit, so if that functionality is there, then it's not easy to find, and then the complaint is it should be more obvious, and ideally you should have individual controls on the Brain so you can find it easily. So I guess it's a complaint either way, because it's not as easy to control the pad volumes, or even possible, as the Millennium. The next thing that I didn't think was great about this is the hi-hat and the ride cymbal. Now, whilst there is definitely an improvement in the sound and reactivity and playability of the hi-hat and ride compared to previous electric kits that I've had, I had to read the instruction manual to work out how to play the bell on the ride cymbal. So I was playing it, playing the ride, playing the edge of the ride, working out how to mute the ride, you know, when you can pinch the end, but couldn't really get the bell to work on every hit. Once I read the manual, I then work out, well, I don't work out because I've read the manual, that you have to hit it with the body of your stick. It then works every time, but because you're hitting it with the body of the stick rather than the tip, there's much more noise coming from the pad. So if you're playing a rhythm and you want the bell coming in, you've got the pad volume always there in the background, just from hitting the rubber, which I don't think is great. And the complaint about the hi-hat that I had is because the hi-hat is much more sensitive. So one of the problems that I had with the Millennium is every time you open it whilst you're playing, it wasn't as responsive as this Roland one is. but I had to read the manual to work out how to set it up and how to press and how to set the pressure points in it so that it plays properly. Now, I would have preferred to have plugged in and just played. So I think, I don't know what the solution is for it, whether they need to reprogram anything or change the software, but it wasn't easy to do, to just sit down, play and hear all the sounds that you wanted to. I had to make adjustments via the module. The other two final things which I didn't think were great about this is on the Millennium kit you're supplied with Velcro cable ties, so you can tie the cables whichever way you want, adjust it, move it around. With this kit you get plastic cable ties. Now ideally I'd like to end up gigging with this kit, because to actually get the kit I sold one of my acoustic kits, so I'm hoping to gig with this at some point in the future. But if I use the plastic cable ties, I'll either have to be very rigid in how I unplug and plug everything and how I set it up, or I'll just keep having to use new cable ties. So Velcro cable ties supplied with this kit would have been better. The other minor complaint that I had is the brain, the module, isn't as user-friendly as the Millennium one. It's not intuitive. Once you get how to use it and you go in and you play your way around and you press the buttons, you can find your way around, but it's not as easy to use as the Millennium. And where I'm not a professional drummer, like I was saying with the ride cymbal, how you play that and the setup of the hi-hat, I just wanted something I could plug in and use easily. And whilst a lot of the stuff you can use fairly easily, where there's so many different things behind the scenes for all the drums and the setups and the recording, it's not intuitive to use. I have to use the manual. So again, that's probably me just being lazy and not reading the manual, but I didn't find the brain super easy to use. So what I do now is just give you a show around the kit so you can actually see what it looks like close up. So have a look now. And you'll see from that look around that the snare and the floor tom heads or pads are actually bigger than the two rack toms. So the rack toms come in at 10 inches each, and the snare and the floor come in at 12 inches each. The two cymbals are 12, the ride is 13, and I didn't really know why it was only an inch bigger. When I looked at them, you can see that the addition of the bell part of the ride cymbal is the main difference, so I guess that's why it's an inch bigger. But I thought, if you're going to add that, why not maybe make it a couple of inches bigger still and then make the bell functionality easier to use? Don't know if that's possible, but it just didn't seem necessarily right to only go up by an inch size but not have great functionality of the bell. So yeah, that was just a thought which I had. And the hi-hat is 12 inches as well. Now you'll have seen from the look around the kit earlier that the bass drum is a lot bigger than previous pads that have been available on some electronic kits. So it's 18 inches across, 10 inches deep. which again just makes this feel just more like an acoustic kit, and I think it looks better. And one of the decisions that I had to make when I was looking at buying or upgrading my electric kit, there was a Yamaha that I was comparing it against that had different coloured shells. It was like a wood colour shell, but one of the things that actually swayed me in the direction of the Roland was the appearance of the bass drum, because I just thought it looked much better and more premium than a small pad. But I suppose an overall comment, even though the pads are bigger, you get the hardware with it, which adds to the size potentially and the much bigger bass drum, the area that this kit is taking up in this room is only probably about another 6 inches that way and maybe a couple of inches out here, so it's not that much of a difference. So that, I thought that was going to be a big impact on the size of this room, but it's not. So that was a positive thing that came out of actually setting it up and realising it didn't take up too much more room than the Millennium kit that I had here previously. Okay, so what I'll do now is just play some of the drums and play some patterns just so you can hear what it sounds like as I take you through some of the preset kits. There is some great functionality which enable you to do cross sticks as well, so I'll show you that, but you have to turn that on per kit. So yeah, there's a little button to add it, so that doesn't add functionality automatically, which again maybe could be improved slightly, because you'd think if the pad is going to be reactive, it should be reactive every single time you play it. You shouldn't have to turn it on and turn something off each time. So I'll just play around some kits. I'll add the bass and the treble now just so it sounds at a midpoint rather than playing with the different sounds all the way through it, just so you can hear some of the kits. So this is preset kit number 1. It's called Studio Jam. This is my favourite kit, I think, to use. This is called Rock Kit. Now, I mentioned earlier about individual pad volumes. The bass drum on this kit is much louder. You see, there's so much of a difference between kit 2 and kit 1. Now, it would be great, like I said, to have individual controls so you could turn that down a bit, but it is what it is. Setting, as you can probably tell from it. This is Warm Jazz. Hip Hop Funk. This is kit setting number 4. This is kit number 5, it's called Laid Back. That was kit number 6, Shallow Mini. I don't know why this is called Speed Metal. This is kit number 7. think sounded beefier than that, but maybe that's their classification of speed metal, I'm not really sure. So there's actually 60 pre-programmed kit settings on this, and with the bass, treble and ambience dials you can change the settings of all the kits tremendously. One of the things that I'll just do now is on the rock setting that I played earlier, I'll add in the cross-stick functionality. So like I said, you actually have to press a button to get it to play. So also with that button turned on, as well as doing cross sticks, you can do rim shots. So yeah, lots of functionality built into the snare drum, which is good, but again, you have to press the button each time to bring it on, so maybe something they could look at improving. Now, all the other functionality that you get on electric kits are built in with this. There's songs, there's recordings that you can do, there's a metronome set in. So as far as the playability goes of it, I've commented on how good I think that is. A lot of the functionality with recording and editing and doing that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a professional drummer, so I don't use that as much. I literally just run it straight out into an amp that sits behind me. So one of the things that I thought Roland could do is, where there's so much functionality built into the brain, what I actually asked for is there a version of this kit with less functionality in the brain? Because I think it's the module that sits with the Roland TD17 kit. It's either the TD17 or the TD27. But I was after like a dumbed down, cheaper version of the brain to sit with these quality pads. Because the main thing that they said to me is that the reason that this kit is the price that it is because of the functionality here. Now, if you're not going to use a lot of the functionality, which I won't, then maybe a cheaper kit could come out and more would be sold to amateur drummers not looking for that much, not looking for that many things in the brain around recording and layering and sounds and tweaking everything to the nth degree, which pro drummers would do, people like me won't. So that's another idea that I had around how they could maybe make it more accessible to amateur drummers or people that don't want to shell out this amount of money for functionality that they won't use. And maybe it's not a market that they want to go in, maybe they don't want to compete with the cheaper drum kit sellers, but it's just an idea I had, because if you've got to customize part of the kit setup anyway when you buy it, by adding your own hi-hat stand and your own snare stand, then maybe you could buy different modules with it per requirement that you had. So yeah, just a thought I had there. That was just a quick play around with preset kit number 14. That was called Studio Kit. So to end this video on a positive note, just really to say that although there are some negatives about the kit, or things that I think that could be slightly better or tweaked to make it a better package, ultimately my opinion is this is fantastic. It's great to play, it sounds great, and I love it. So yeah, look forward to seeing you in other videos when you can see it being played more. Cheers, bye bye.